John from Heroes and Legends, and we got some more Hour of Devastation previews to talk about today. This set, I tell you, it's shaping up to be really good. It's a small set, but they're packing in a lot of power cards here, and today, no exception. We have some really great ones to look at. Quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to support us, one of which is our Amazon affiliate store. Any purchases you make there, a small percentage will come back to help the channel, and you'll also find a link to our Patreon page below as well. With that out of the way, let's get into the cards. And we're going to begin with this series of 5 cards. I want to call this a cycle since they are different cards. However, they do have something in common. These are all kind of exert matters cards, which in tandem could work really well maybe in a draft strategy. Now, we'll look at each one individually. They're all uncommons, and I'll tell you right off the bat, I don't really feel like any of these are going to cross over very easily into a standard environment, but if you're a draft player, you're going to be real interested in these next 5 cards. Stewart of Solidarity, it's a white and 1 human warrior 2/2. You can tap and exert it, and it will create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. Vizier of the True, white and 3 human cleric 3/2. You may exert this as it attacks. Whenever you exert a creature, tap target creature and opponent controls. Fervent Paincaster, a red and 2/3/1 human wizard. You can tap to deal 1 damage to target player, or tap and exert. It will deal 1 damage to target creature. Hope Tender, a green and 1 human druid 2/2. Pay 1 and tap, untap target land. Pay 1 and tap and exert. Untap 2 target lands. And finally, Resolute Survivors, a white, a red, and 1 human warrior 3/3. You may exert this as it attacks. Whenever you exert a creature, this will deal 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. So you look at all of these together and they seem like a very strong draft strategy, certainly. I mean, look at the first card, for example. 2/2 for 2 with upside that potentially is allowing you to go wide. The next one, Vizier of the True. This one and the last one, very impressive. If you have a lot of exert creatures on your side, you can get in there for some extra damage, tapping down your opponent's blockers and then doing even direct damage through the Resolute Survivors. The red one and the green one maybe are the least exciting for me. I mean, 3/1 for 3 in red is a little fragile, obviously, and tapping it to ping a player isn't super exciting. Exerting it to ping a creature may be a little bit better in some situations, but it is very slow. And Hope Tender, also very slow, a 2/2 for 2, but at least it does have upsides. You can pay a mana to untap another land, so it's good maybe for color fixing sometimes. Or if you have a utility land that has a tap ability, you might be able to use it twice. That's kind of interesting. The second ability does let you ramp a little bit, but it is a little slow because it won't be able to untap next turn. So I like what these are doing together. Like I said at the beginning, I don't feel like these are going to cross over necessarily into standard or anything like that. But for draft and to maybe a lesser extent even sealed, these cards are at least intriguing and maybe could do some work for you in the right combinations. Next, we have a German language preview card. It's Juro the Purified. 2 white and 3, human warrior 4/3 rare with vigilance. And when this enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a planeswalker card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle. If a source would deal damage to a planeswalker you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Okay, so 4/3 with vigilance for 5. Not super exciting on paper, but this does tutor for a planeswalker, and that cannot be ignored. That's a very powerful effect in some cases, and there's some decks that might really like this. It is legendary. In some ways you might consider that a drawback, but at least with this card, it's got 2 things going for it. One, it could be a commander if you want to do a mono white commander deck and start looking for some Gideons and maybe some Ajani's or something like that with this card. You can keep casting it and keep searching. That's kind of cool. The other thing, though, is even in a regular deck where you're running 4 copies, or up to 4 copies, for example, you have the legend rule. I mean, you still play the card, you still get the effect, and then you just have to sacrifice one of them. You're still tutoring for that planeswalker for 5. That's kind of intriguing, too. So I guess I kind of wonder, does this have a place in the world of Standard? I'm going deep here. I honestly don't know if it would. But a few months back, when the last set dropped, there were a lot of Gideon tribal deck list floating around. Does a card like this make a deck like that more consistent? I don't know. At 5 casting cost, it might be asking a little bit much, but does let you tutor for a Planeswalker. I keep coming back to that. So this is one I would at least want to test with, if nothing else. As far as limited goes, it's not very exciting there unless you have a Planeswalker to search for. In that case, it's awesome. More consistency to pull that Planeswalker and maybe win more games through that avenue, right? That could be good, but usually you don't have a Planeswalker. And if you don't have one, you really miss unlocking the true power of this card, and there's probably a lot of other things you might rather play for 5, unless you just really need a big creature. In that case, it could still be good for you in Sealed or something like that. Next we have Razaketh the Foul-Blooded, 3 black and 5, legendary creature demon, mythic, 8/8, flying trample, pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a card, and put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So I look at this thing and I first think, well, maybe Reanimation? So we start thinking about Modern or perhaps Legacy Reanimation, but my problem is there's better targets, I think. I think Griselbrand's still a better target, even though there's something to be said about being able to surgically look for a card that you need as opposed to just drawing 7, at least at times anyway. And this thing is still big. I mean, don't forget it's an 8/8 flying trample creature on its own, even without the whole demonic tutor thing going on. So I find that pretty interesting, but at the end of the day, I think I'd just rather have Griselbrand because I don't have to worry about sacrificing a creature to activate it. And a lot of times that can be a problem for some of these reanimation decks. They're all in on one big creature. You don't have expendable creatures to sacrifice to something like this. Standard, I don't think you can reliably get it out, at least with the cards we've seen so far. Now, the casting cost is also very high, so that kind of, I think, takes it out of Standard for that regard. Limited, it is a really high casting cost and 3 on color, even though sometimes you have more turns to build up when it comes to maybe Sealed or Draft. I still don't think this is really something that's truly achievable in most cases. Finally, Commander. Now here's where the card I think could shine, whether it's your Commander or if it's just in your deck. You can play this eventually. I mean, yes, it's expensive, but mana in the Commander decks usually can swing something like this after a number of turns. So later in the game, you just play this and start looking for the things you need to win the game. I really like it in that capacity. I think that's where this card will really shine. Next we have Earthshaker Camera. 1 red and 1 Jackal Warrior rare 2/1 haste. When this enters the battlefield, target creature with power less than or equal to Earthshaker Camera's power can't block this turn, and you can internalize for 2 red and 4. This card I really like. We've been seeing so many pieces to the red aggro deck come at us over the last few sets, and that deck has gotten really close, and I think it just needs a few more cards to put it over the top, and I feel like maybe we're just getting them in this set, and this could be one of them. Now, maybe it's not mono red in Standard, maybe it's Rakdos, and we'll see another card later that really supports the Rakdos colors in aggro, but also it could be Boros. But whatever it is, I feel like we're getting really close. Cards like this are certainly going to help. In an aggro build, you play this on turn 2, 2/1 haster, get in there for some damage. Maybe you can force a creature to not be able to block it, and then later on it comes back once you're in the mid-game to late game with the Eternalize as a 4/4 with haste, also with that same ability, but even better this time around. That's actually kind of awesome. So this is definitely a card to watch. I feel like this could see Standard play. This will be good for you in Limited as well. Little fragile early on, but I like it because it does work early. It does work late. It's a card that no matter when you get it, does have potential to help you win a game. Next, we have a card from a Japanese language preview, and we think it translates to Rebuilding Kenra, a green and 1 Jackal Warrior 2/2 rare. When Rebuilding Kenra enters the battlefield, choose target creature. You may give that creature +X/+X till end of turn, where X is Rebuilding Kenra's power, and you can internalize for 2 green and 4. For me, this is a really good limited card. I'd like to pick this up maybe early in a pack and draft. Great to have in a sealed pool. I'm not sure about Standard just because I think that early on it doesn't quite do enough. And later on, that Eternalized cost is just a tad too high. But in Limited, this could do some work for you. First off, it's a 2/2 for 2. I mean, that's just fine. And it's coming into play with the ability to perhaps give a target +2/+2 till end of turn, which could lead to maybe some extra damage at times. But maybe more importantly, later on in the game, you have that Eternalize effect coming back as a 4/4. That's actually kind of awesome, especially if you have a trample creature on your side. So it does a lot. Again, it does it early, it does it late. I like that about this card. Rhonas' Last Stand, 2 green sorcery rare. Create a 5/4 green snake creature token. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. Wow. All right. So this is the third in the cycle we've seen. We saw the black one. We saw the white one. I really like those. I really like this one too. Now, I don't have to explain too much. I mean, this is a super economical 5/4 token producer for 2 mana. Granted, 2 on color, but still, just for 2 mana. Now, I have to point out though, we do live in a world where Fatal Push exists. And I don't want to get too deep into, sure, everything dies to removal and all that. But it makes me a little nervous, because if I play this on turn 2, it's an awesome play. If it gets immediately pushed, then I'm in a weird situation where maybe I can't even play anything on turn 3. I have to skip my turn, and that's not going to feel really good. That's a big risk you're taking. But the reward is really strong. A 5/4, if you can get away with it on turn 2, even turn 3, even turn 4, is a great play, right? And if you're playing these in multiples, maybe you're lucky enough to get a couple in your hand. You play one on turn 2, it gets pushed. You play another one on turn 4. Still a good play on turn 4, right? Your opponent has to find answers for these cards. So I like it. Even though Fatal Push exists, I still like it, and I do think it will see standard play. Yes, it might not be a powerhouse that it could have been without Fatal Push in the format, but I still think it's a very, very strong card and definitely will see play. If you happen to get this in limited, congratulations, you're having a good day. Easily first pickable in draft and phenomenal free and sealed. Uncage the Menagerie. 2 green and X. It's a sorcery mythic. Search your library for up to X creature cards with different names that each have converted mana cost X. Reveal them. Put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Alright, so a couple things that come to mind here right off the bat. We have seen this type of effect in the past, and we've seen it done better. Right, so let's get that out of the way right away. However, we don't have those options in the world of Standard. So is this a good card? I actually think it's pretty good in Standard. I see this could be very playable. It has to be in the right deck, right? Your deck has to want something like this. It is allowing you to tutor for a creature as long as you have the mana to back it up. And if there's a deck that's looking for a particular creature at any time in this thing's life in the meta, then yeah, it will definitely see play. Another place where this is good is if you have a lot of cards at the same converted mana cost in a particular deck. Maybe you're stacked at the 2 or 3 spot, maybe an aggressive deck or a stompy deck or something. Then again, this all of a sudden becomes pretty good. It's a tutor / card advantage effect in that example. So I actually like this a lot. Yes, it does feel like at times it could be a little mana intensive, but this is a card you play later in the game, restock your hand, tutor for what you need. Tutors are very powerful, even if they do make them a little more expensive than we saw in the past with tutors. They're still very powerful effects. I do think this can see standard play. And again, this feels like a good card even in limited, whether that's sealed or draft, because if nothing else, you're tutoring for maybe one of your better creatures. Claim to Fame. This one I really like. All right, here we go. 1 black, sorcery. This is an uncommon too, by the way. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Fame, a red and 1. Sorcery, Aftermath. Target creature gets +2/+7, gains haste till end of turn. So for 3 mana, you get to take a small creature, converted mana cost wise anyway, 2 or less from your graveyard, put into play, and give it haste and +2/+0. Now let's think about some creatures that exist out there. Just off the top of my head, I'm just going to mention 2. Tarmogoyf and Death Shadow. Alright, next card. I don't know what else to say. This is going to be awesome in Modern, right? In some ways, this card is probably better in like Legacy Modern because you are dealing with a lot of small good creatures there, at least small casting cost good creatures there, as opposed to even Standard, but I still think this is good in Standard. Even another thing off the top of my head, Caster Mage. I mean, right? If you need a utility spell like that and you bring snaps in to get something else, awesome. So this card's versatile. It can be a beater. It can be a little more of a methodical card if you're getting things like Snapcaster. I love it. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. This is going to be good for you in limited too. I mean, it's cheap. It does enough. Even if you have a small creature, just getting some extra haste damage in there as a surprise could be really good at times, even winning a game. So yeah, this card, phenomenal. River Hoopoe. First off, I wanted to say this card was previewed by MTG Young Mage, who I have not heard of prior, But when I saw the card previewed, I checked out his channel on YouTube, and he's a young man doing a really good job. Great videos, a lot of good production value. I'm glad Wizards found him and gave him a preview because he did a great job with his preview video, and it was very impressive. So check it out if you get a chance. But the card itself, a blue and green bird, uncommon, 1/3 flying, and you can pay a blue, a green, and 3. You gain 2 life and you draw a card. First off, great card in limited. 2 casting cost card, granted, 2 different colors, but still, 1/3 flyer, can do a lot of blocking, and then later in the game it's a great mana sink to help you draw more cards, and even gain some life, and after a while, that life gain could be strong enough to not be inconsequential at all. So I actually like this a lot in limited. It feels like it could be pretty good. I love drawing cards, and I love small flyers that come in the game early, so this kind of has it all there. As far as other formats go, I think the mana sink might be a little too expensive, unfortunately, for standard, and it's probably not doing quite enough on its own there, but definitely very good and limited. Alright, here's another real big card. So we're going to the opposite end of the spectrum now when it comes to YouTubers. This was a card that was previewed by somebody everybody knows, Wedge from the Mana Source. So congratulations to Wedge. He got an awesome preview card. A little surprised they gave this one out because they premiered the other 2 gods themselves. A lot of times cards this big, they do articles on the Wizards website about, but that's awesome that Wedge got the opportunity to premiere this one. And it's good. The Scarab God, you can imagine, we've seen the other 2. The other 2 are amazing. We got both versions here, the Invocation and the regular, but let's read it. It's a black, blue, 3, legendary creature god, mythic, of course, 5/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. Hey, why not? And black, blue, and 2, exile target creature card from a graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. And then, of course, it has the clause, when this dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Wow. All right. First off, zombie decks were already good in the meta. This is just another way to propel them into, I guess, maybe back into top tier. They kind of were top tier, and recently they fell off a little bit because of some of the hate cards out there, like Sweltering Suns and Chandra Flamecaller. But as long as they can get past that, here's a card that's really going to help them do that. So if the zombies get wiped out, this can bring them back bigger and better. Like, that's kind of crazy. Not to mention the direct damage and the scrying aspect of it. And it's super persistent like the other gods. If it doesn't get exiled, you can still get it back from the graveyard, play it again, and it's really hard for your opponent to deal with. And it's still 5/5 on its own. That isn't nothing at all either. So this card's amazing. Yes, this will see standard play. And probably in zombie decks. I was talking the other day, could there be like a God Tron style deck where they try to cram a bunch of these gods in there in Grixis colors, like make the ultimate like Bolas deck? I don't know if we're quite there, unfortunately. It seems like it could be fun. It might need more support to make that happen. Of course, we haven't seen the whole set yet, so I guess we'll wait and see. But regardless, definitely a fantastic card for standard. Bomb and limited, first pick, right in draft. Happy to open and sealed. As for Commander as well, I mean, you do have to take into account, this is exile target creature from a graveyard too. It doesn't even have to necessarily be your graveyard. That could really excel in the world of Commander. I mean, other places too, but great in Commander. And definitely check out Wedge's video because he does talk about a lot of great combos with this card. I'll kind of direct you there. There's just so many things you can do with this. I love this card. It's awesome. All of these were home runs. They did a great job with these 3 gods, these 3 Grixis color cycle gods. Alright, having said that, those are the cards for today. And wow, we got some huge ones. So there'll be more coming. Tomorrow we'll do another video. Of course, we'll recap everything that comes out within the next 24-hour cycle. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.